Yeah, yeah, yeah. So many lies that you hear from the net, they don't get her respect. She reporting the truth, not a check. You want an unbiased opinion straight from the chest, not a bit of accomplice or someone here for a check. Tune in, these are thoughts from a lawyer on a mission who goes so hard it's like she works on commission. Trolls in the comments might say she tripping cause they lack the knowledge. They don't know they missing. Got a couple current events that you like. Wanna know about law from the eyes. Tired of all these blogs running lies because their agendas are disguised. Tune in to the intellect, cause I'm sure y'all missing all the facts of the case that she steady is gifting. Someone here for the people, man, it's so uplifting. If you ain't subscribed yet, then you just omitting facts.
Hello, everyone. We are back. Welcome. Shout out to Miss Buckeye, who is out here being the great usher up in the chat, greeting everyone personally. If you don't know who I am, my name is Pam Esquire, also known as Your Law Intellect. We have been covering the Diddy trial, even pre-trial. We went over motions, bond hearings, and all of that, covering it from the beginning to the end. And now we are at the end. Unless you've been living under a rock, I know you guys know that he was found not guilty of the racketeering, not guilty of 2 counts of trafficking, and he was found guilty on 2 counts of prostitution as it relates to Cassie and as it relates to Jane. Now, what has been happening is that immediately, as I told you, I say he's probably going to ask for bond. And that's exactly what happened. The judge said, write it down. And since we've been off, there have been the government side on why they don't want him to get out, and then Diddy's side of saying why he should get out. And the government has reached out to some of these alleged witnesses, I guess, asking if they can basically give some type of a statement. So we have a statement from Dante Nash, who is basically saying, I fear for my life. And we also have a letter that is from Cassie's lawyer. So we don't know if it's specifically from Cassie. It's a very interesting what it says, very brief, but we'll go over that as well. At 5 o'clock is supposed to be when this whole situation goes down. We will know by about 6 o'clock whether the judge is going to allow Diddy to go home pending sentencing. One of the things that we discussed is that everyone that I guess wanted this to go a different way are saying, well, he's still facing 20 years or up to 20 years. And even I think the government said that in like support of them not wanting him to be out on bond. Well, the government has actually went through the sentencing guidelines and they've done a preliminary number, which of course the defenses would be less than that by the time they go through it and they find things that they feel like should be weighed in by the judge. And they came up with what he may get. So it's like 4 years and 3 months, or up to, it's on the lower end, they said 4 years and 3 months to 5 years and 3 months. So like I told you, even though a statute says that you can get up to this amount of time, there is a formula. There is a formula that we all have used, of which you argue about sentencing, and it's not a one thing fits all type of a deal. That's not what it is. So what I want y'all to do is do me a favor and hit the like button. Okay. And if you're new here, welcome. And I want you to consider subscribing to the channel. That will be so dope. And we would love to have you here. This is the letter for bond. It was filed by Diddy's team, specifically Spiro. We know that Shapiro is I think she's the one known for doing appellate work. She actually did write. Diddy put her on his team around the time of bond when he first was getting denied with just, Agnifilo. So anyway, let's get into it. Mr. Combs moves for release on appropriate conditions pursuant to 18 U.S.C. section 3143 sub A sub 1. pending his sentencing proceedings. Given the jury's clear verdict acquitting Mr. Combs of the RICO conspiracy and ex-trafficking counts, continued detention of Mr. Combs is inappropriate. As these proceedings have demonstrated, and as we told the court from the outset of this case, Mr. Combs came to New York to surrender in order to defend against the government's charges because he was, quote, committed to showing his innocence, end quote. Since his arrest and detention on September 17, 2024, Mr. Combs has obeyed the court, respected their proceedings, and demonstrated model behavior at the MDC. And today, the jury unambiguously rejected the government's allegations that Mr. Combs ran a years-long criminal enterprise or engaged in ex-trafficking, the core of the government's case. Mr. Combs stands convicted of 2 Mann Act counts, and his sentencing exposure is substantially lower than when the government initially sought detention. The court should release Mr. Combs on the proposed condition. So they have the applicable law. A defendant who had been found guilty of an offense is entitled to release pending sentencing if the court finds by, quote, clear and convincing evidence, end quote, that he, quote, is not likely to flee or pose a danger to the safety of any other person or the community if released under Section 3142B or C. And that's, you can see generally U.S. v. Abuarma, I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, over there in the Second Circuit, which is a 2004 case, or U.S. v. Landona Villa, which is a 1990 case. Aside from the burden of proof resting on the defendant rather than the government, the operative standards are the same as those outlined in Section 3142B or C that the court considered at the outset of the proceedings, see 18 U.S.C. Section 3143A, which provides the defendant is released in accordance with Section 3142B or C. Thus, when evaluating whether the defense has met its burden, the court must consider if a condition or combination of conditions will reasonably assure the appearance of the person required and the safety of any other person in the community. As for flight risk, it is insufficient to rely only on, quote, evidence of the commission of a serious crime and the fact of a potentially long sentence to support a finding of risk of flight. And that is what the government said at first, like all of the years he's facing. Rather, the court must sensitively consider several factors, including the length of prison time the defendant faces and his individual circumstances, whether familial and community ties make flight unlikely, his actual ability to flee and evade the law, evidenced by such things as whether he has a passport, familiarity with other countries or locations, and or the financial ability to do so, and the incentive to remain provided by the anticipated harm that will befall any sureties. Moreover, a defendant's past history of compliance with release conditions and court attendance are highly relevant, and that's U.S. v. LaFontaine. And that is a Second Circuit case as well from 2000. And it provides defendants disregard of prior order supported finding that he was a flight risk. Regarding the dangerousness prong, there are 2 components. First, the question is whether the defendant poses a safety risk to any particular individual, i.e. any other person. Second, as to safety of the community, the question is whether the defendant is likely to criminally recidivate, commit future crimes against the community as a whole. As Judge Chin wrote in U.S. v. Madoff, the question appears to become one of propensity to commit further crimes. Mr. Combs presents no risk of flight or danger, and the release conditions proposed herein are more than sufficient to assure that he will appear as required in the safety of any person. So they're saying he doesn't present a flight or danger. During the initial bail proceedings, the government argued Mr. Combs was a flight risk because he was, quote, charged with serious offenses, carrying significant, in some cases, mandatory terms of imprisonment. And they, quote, they cite the transcript. The circumstances are now the opposite. See, now he doesn't have that type of issue, which is what the government argued before. He's not facing substantial amount of years imprisonment. And so, yeah, he's saying he's in a different position. The base offense level for a violation of the Mann Act is 14. So they went over, remember I told you the numbers. We went over that in the video we did this morning. Because there are 2 counts of conviction related to 2 separate victims, it instructs that the counts are grouped separately. Because the offense level of each group is 14, an additional 2 levels are added, resulting in a total offense level of 16. Mr. Combs is in criminal history category 1. This results in an expected guideline range from 21 to 27 months. So the defense is saying his guy, didn't I tell you? I said their guidelines is going to be way less than what the government is. They're counting, our math don't math the same, okay? So they're saying 21 to 27 months. So that would be what? Less than 2 years. Mr. Combs has already been incarcerated for 10 months. His sentencing exposure, which we fully respect and do not seek to minimize it in any way, is in fact low, and so is any corresponding risk of flight. So they're saying it's even lower than what the government was saying in theirs. Mr. Combs' actions prior to his arrest in 2024 further demonstrate that he is neither a flight risk nor a danger to the community. Mr. Combs knew he was under investigation and likely to be charged early in the year, but he was not arrested until September 2024. In the intervening months, he demonstrated that he is trustworthy and committed to respecting the legal process. When it became apparent to counsel that Mr. Combs would be formally charged, Mr. Combs did something extraordinary. He left his home in Miami and traveled to New York, the very location of the prosecutors and agents investigating him. Through counsel, Mr. Combs promptly told the government that he had voluntarily came to New York, offered to tell them specifically where he was, and offered to turn himself in at the appropriate time. The government rejected that offer and elected to arrest him, but Mr. Combs' own conduct was the opposite of flight. He affirmatively and proactively sought to cooperate with the legal process. Even before this offer of self-surrender, Mr. Combs demonstrated a pattern of trustworthiness and cooperation. Mr. Combs' residence were searched in March of 2024, and even before that, Mr. Combs and his counsel were aware that the U.S. attorney was investigating him for serious crimes. Throughout this time, Mr. Combs acted forthrightly and remained committed to the process. First, shortly after the searches on April 1st, 2024, counsel took possession of Mr. Combs' U.S. passport. On the same day, his counsel advised the prosecutors that Mr. Combs had surrendered his passport, that defense counsel would not return it to him, and that he would not leave the country. The passport remains in defense counsel's possession. Second, counsel advised the government that if Mr. Combs intended to travel domestically, counsel would inform the AUSAs. All subsequent travel was done with the government's knowledge. Third, Mr. Combs voluntarily relocated to New York on September 5th, 2024. Once Mr. Combs arrived in New York, defense counsel immediately informed the government of Mr. Combs' whereabouts. Fourth, he paid off the mortgage at the residence at 2 West Star Island in Miami. This payment of about $18 million was for one reason alone, so that he would have this $48 million residence free and clear of any encumbrances so that it can be used to secure a bond. All this shows Mr. Combs is not a flight risk. To the contrary, he has taken extraordinary measures demonstrating what he always wanted was to cooperate with the legal process so he could establish his innocence in this court. This is precisely what he did as to the most serious charges against him. Y'all keeping up. Hit that like button. Thank you so much. It's over 1,000 of you guys. Thank you so much. Welcome to the channel. All right. Moreover, as for other factors the court must consider, such as familial and community ties, the court need only consider Mr. Combs and his family's conduct over the last 10 months and prior to assure itself that there is simply no risk Mr. Combs will seek to flee or recidivate. Throughout these proceedings, Mr. Combs' family has been seated by his side, demonstrating the same respect for these proceedings and support for Mr. Combs that they will pay going forward. They were here and are here to support him, and he is obviously committed to reuniting with his family to continue to support them, not to flee or put them at further risk. As just a few examples of what Mr. Combs has missed since he was incarcerated, he has missed the biggest moments in his daughter's life. Ain't that what I said on my live? You think they was watching? He missed his twins' high school graduation. They did not have any parent there with them because their mother, Kim Porter, tragically passed away in 2018. He missed his twins' prom. He has a minor daughter, 2.5 years old, who has been without him for 9 months. He needs and wants to be with and remain with his family. At today's hearing, the government suggested that Mr. Combs could still be a danger in the sense that he still had the means and ability to commit prostitution crimes. With all due respect, that suggestion is unsupported. The government had, for an extended period of time, a PIN register on his phone. Mr. Combs never called any potential escorts or prostitutes, nor did he make any effort to arrange meetings with escorts or prostitutes, nor was he with Jane in New York. In any event, reasonable conditions would ensure that Mr. Combs would not have the ability to arrange meetings with escorts. Cases overwhelmingly support release under the circumstances. So they got a bunch of case law that supports it. Defendant was convicted of travel act violation for running a prostitution business, permitted to remain on bail pending sentences. So they coming with all the case law supporting it. Defendant convicted of transportation of a minor, permitted to remain on bail pending sentence. U.S. v. Land. Defendant pled guilty to travel act violation predicated on promoting and facilitating prostitution business, permitted to remain on bail pending sentences, and allowed to self-surrender. And U.S. v. Brenner, defendant who ran international prostitution ring, permitted to remain on bail pending sentencing and only remanded after sentence was imposed. And the case as it stands is simply not in the same category of other cases where detention for a Mann Act defendant was deemed appropriate, such as U.S. v. Riviera Luna, where the defendant had connections to a smuggling network that smuggled the numerous alleged victims. Other cases further support release. They got U.S. v. Fox, affirming pretrial release despite sex trafficking charges because the government failed to explain why the stringent release condition imposed by the district court would be insufficient to prevent the defendant from evading surveillance in a manner that would permit him to engage in the kind of non-consensual drug-induced violent sex that forms the basis of the allegation against him undetected. U.S. v. Jeffries, we talked about that over, y'all know who that is over there at Abercrombie. That was at the Eastern District of New York. The government did not even request pretrial detention. Case, even though conduct was meticulously planned to take advantage of men for defendant's own sexual pleasure, which included forcible sex without consent. We talked about that in the beginning when we talked about the bond. I was like, well, how is he getting out, but Diddy's not? Different districts, but hey. And then they have U.S. v. DeBear. So this is the proposed release condition. The defense proposes this bail package: $1 million bond, co-signed by Sean Combs, his mother, his sister, and the mother of his oldest daughter. Mr. Combs' travel will be restricted to the Southern District of Florida, Central District of California, and the Southern District of New York to attend court and meet with his counsel, as well as the Eastern District of New York or the District of New Jersey, only to the extent that his travel to and from New York involves an airport on those districts. Mr. Combs' passport surrendered to pretrial services, drug testing as ordered by pretrial services, all other standard conditions of pretrial services. So that is what they are requesting. 1,300 of y'all, make sure you hit that button. Okay. Let's go on. Did you just say have the lie started? You said send Diddy home. Stormy said they laughable. Said the civil suits need to be dropped. Why y'all so angry Sean didn't get found guilty of all charges? Listen, a jury of his peers is that's what they found. And another thing with this, we're going to talk about that, Jewel, because I think it's interesting. Cassie's letter to me is interesting, and I talked to somebody about that in the membership, and it was because Cassie filed that lawsuit with Diddy being out. Cassie asked for that money prior to Diddy even any charges at all. Cassie never went to the police and said, I want to press charges. She never went to the federal government. They came to her. So to say I'm so scared is very interesting. I guess they're trying to say because they testified against him, maybe he'd be pissed. But she wasn't too scared. She didn't appear to be very scared of him when she filed that lawsuit. But hey, I'm just saying. All right. Yeah, that was Peachy Bama. We was having that conversation. Like, wait, what? All right, so let's see what the government got to say. I'm reading fast because they supposed to be back on at 5 o'clock. So let's see. No, that's Nash. That was Cassie. I think was that. Where's the government at? Hold on. That was Chud. Okay, wait a minute. Maybe I didn't load it. Okay, maybe I just didn't load it or something. I don't know. Here we go. Here's the government. Y'all with me? We just trying to see what they're gonna argue because we're gonna get tweets, but we won't get the whole everything because you can only tweet so much. All right, make sure you guys listen real fast because I'm reading real fast. Okay. The government, this is what they say. They got their background. They got 8 pages. Over the course of 7 weeks, the jury heard evidence of the defendant's violence, interstate transportation of numerous individuals for prostitution, drug use and distribution, and attempts to escape law enforcement detection. This conduct spanned 2 decades. At trial, the defendant did not walk away from these facts. Indeed, the defendant embraced the fact that he was a habitual drug user who regularly engaged in domestic violence. That's not true, because the domestic violence was against Cassie. However, Jane didn't have that story until last year, I guess, when she took his head and banged it on the table and they got into that scuffle. But she didn't say she had a violent relationship with him. But let's go on. Rather, the defendant argued that despite his repeated violence against girlfriends, he did not engage in sex trafficking. And despite his prolific drug use, he did not engage in racketeering activity. The jury subsequently acquitted the defendant on counts related to racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. The defendant was convicted of 2 counts of violating the Mann Act by transporting girlfriends and male commercial sex workers interstate for the purpose of engaging in acts of prostitution. Specifically, the defendant caused these individuals to travel interstate, international for the purpose of engaging in freak-offs or hotel nights, elaborate multi-day sex performance involving significant drug use that the defendant directed, masturbated during, and often filmed. The evidence presented over the course of 7 weeks showed that the defendant did this repeatedly, including after the defendant undisputably knew that he was under federal investigation. Additionally, the facts adduced at trial show, among other things, that the defendant serially abused a former girlfriend, Cassandra Ventura, and that Mrs. Ventura sustained injuries from many of these assaults. One such assault that took place was March of 2016, so basically 10 years ago. They're talking about 10 years ago. Was captured on surveillance video. This video, a version of which was published by CNN in May of 2024, showed the defendant throwing Ms. Ventura to the ground, kicking her repeatedly, and attempting to drag her down the hallway. This was far from the only assault the defendant perpetrated on Ms. Ventura. Trial testimony from multiple witnesses recounted numerous other instances of abuse in which the defendant slapped, hit, kicked, and dragged Ms. Ventura by the hair. Despite the defendant's claim in a public social media post that he was a changed man, following the leak of the surveillance video, the defendant continued to engage in violent conduct. In June 2024, the defendant choked, kicked, and punched another girlfriend, Jane, and then directed her to take drugs and to perform in freak-offs. Well, the problem with that is, like I said, they were using that as part of the sex trafficking, of which the jury said he's not guilty of. So this incident occurred months after the defendant's residences were searched by federal agents, when the defendant unquestionably understood that he was under federal investigation for sex trafficking by force, fraud, and coercion. The facts at trial also show that the defendant regularly bought and consumed drugs, including drugs that he provided to Ms. Ventura and Jane during freak-offs and hotel nights. In addition to the June 2024 violent incident involving Jane, the defendant also engaged in other criminal conduct while he was aware that he was under federal investigation. During the March 2024 searches of the defendant residence, law enforcement recovered narcotics and 3 separate firearms with defaced serial numbers. Further evidence at trial established that the defendant engaged in transportation for purposes of prostitution in Jane as recently as August 2024, a mere month before his arrest, where Jane had sex with an escort in front of the defendant at the defendant's 2-star island residence. Indeed, the defendant was planning to fly Jane to New York for that same purpose in September of 2024, mere days before the arrest. In September 2024, at the time of his arrest in Manhattan, law enforcement recovered $9,000 cash and drugs, including MDMA and ketamine, from the defendant's hotel room. These are the guideline calculations that we were talking about earlier. They're saying counts 3 and 5. The guidelines applicable to count 3 is USSG section 2G1.1. Pursuant to that, the base offense level is 14. The guidelines applicable to count 5 is the same, base level 14. Grouping analysis pursuant to USSG section 2G11D. Because the offense involved more than one victim, the chapter 3 part D is applied as if the promoting of a commercial sex act or prohibited sexual conduct in respect to each victim have been contained in a separate count of conviction. Because there are more than 6 victims and each victim as if they have been contained separate counts of convictions, there are more than 5 groups. Each group has the offense of 14. So I think the defense just talked about Cassie and they talked about Cassie and they talked about Jane. And I think what the government is doing is they're adding the sex workers. They're saying there's 6. Okay, so that may be how they got their number higher. So I'm sure that's something they're going to argue about. Even setting aside Miss Ventura and Jane, the evidence at trial showed that the defendant transported 7 escorts: Jules Theodore, Clayton Howard, Julian Sapp, Cabral Williams, Paul Arthur, Mike. They got their whole government names. Michael Igiowoko, aka Reggie, and Rico, for the purpose of promoting commercial acts. So they're trying to actually name the alleged, because what they did in the indictment is they did put Cassie and the escorts. They generally said it without saying the name. So they're trying to add everyone. So they're saying a victim means a person transported, persuaded, induced, enticed, or coerced to engage in the travel. Yeah, they're going to argue about this one on who is included to group it. So then they have a chapter 3 enhancement pursuant to the law, or to the federal sentencing guidelines. Because the defendant was a manager or supervisor and the criminal activity was otherwise extensive, 3 levels are added. See what I'm saying? It's like a mathematical situation of which, as the defense, I'm trying to mitigate it, and they're going to try to add to it and find things that they can add to make it higher. The evidence at trial showed that the defendant was a manager or supervisor of one or more of the participants, named Ms. Ventura and Jane. Further, the criminal activity was otherwise extensive. When considering whether criminal activity was otherwise extensive, application 03 instructs the court to consider all persons involved during the course of the entire offense. So basically, they're going through the guidelines, telling you why they're trying to add all these different reasons. Pursuant to 3C1.1, because the defendant willfully obstructed or impeded or attempted to obstruct or impede the administration of justice with respect to the investigation and prosecutions of count 3 and 5, then they trying to add something else. They add 2 levels. They said the defendant attempted to obstruct justice with regard to counts 3 and 5 in multiple respects, including his attempts to pay off security guards following his assault of Miss Ventura at the Intercontinental Hotel. How are they just adding all of this stuff that I don't know? It's interesting. With regard to the Intercontinental Hotel assault, application 01 provides that obstructive conduct that occurred prior to the start of the investigation of the instant offense of conviction may be covered by the guidelines if the conduct was purposefully calculated and likely to thwart the investigation or prosecution of the offense of a conviction. Welcome to the government. Accordingly, the total offense level for counts 3 and 5 is 24. Criminal history, based upon this office's current understanding, including through representations by defense, the defendant has 0 criminal history points. In accordance with the above, the defendant's criminal history category is 1. Sentencing range, accordingly, based only on the preliminary calculation set forth above, the defendant guidelines range is at least 51 to 63 months. So 4 years, 3 months to 5 years, 3 months. The government notes, however, that the guidelines applicable at sentencing may be higher than this preliminary calculation. The government has not had adequate time to carefully consider all potentially applicable applicable guideline provisions. Like they ain't had time to really go through and see what they can get him on to add more points to move him up to another higher category to get more years. For example, as the court is aware, evidence presented at trial in court of the defendant's conviction on count 3 and 5 overlaps substantially with evidence related to ex-trafficking counts. Accordingly, much of this conduct is not included in the guidelines definitions. Good to see y'all. Hello, everybody. All right, let's keep it moving. The government notes, however, that the guidelines applicable of sentences may be higher. Okay, that's what I just read. So they go through the law on the Bail Reform Act about recently convicted people. They do their analysis. They feel like the defendant, based on the law, the defendant must be detained pursuant to the Bail Reform Act as detailed above. The offenses of conviction constitute crimes of violence and mandate detention following the defendant's conviction. Here, the defendant has been convicted of 2 such crimes because of the near impossibility of meeting the stringent criteria set out in the section. It's going to be very interesting because this is what was used in the Whitehead case, because it was one of the counts. It may have had something to do with extortion or something. So when they do say something by violence, it is something within that where they do have mandatory remands. And so that was when he went in. He was out on bond, so he got convicted. And then he came back. The government filed a motion to have him immediately remanded. And so he ended up getting remanded. So they're saying because it was violent under the Bail Reform Act, the defense is going to argue that's not what it says, I'm sure. However, as the Second Circuit has recognized that exceptions is very narrow exceptions. Indeed, the circuit has reversed a district court's decision to release a defendant on bail pending sentences on this basis. Assuming arguendo that the court reasonably concluded that Leah, that must be the case, posed no risk of flight or danger to anyone and thus satisfied the requirement of section 3143 sub a sub 1, it plainly erred in finding that Leah's case presented exceptional circumstances, since exceptional circumstances exist where there is a unique combination of circumstances giving rise to situations that are out of the ordinary, and there is nothing exceptional about going to school, being employed, or being a first-time offender, either separately or a combination. So they trying to get them in on the Bail Reform Act too. As detention is mandatory following a conviction of a Mann Act offense, the government has been unable to locate a case in which a defendant was released from custody following such a conviction. Well, how the defense find cases, but y'all can't find any? So they found cases, but y'all can't find them. Indeed, the government has only identified several cases where the defendant was detained pre-trial and remained detained through sentencing. So they got U.S. v. Hernandez. They got U.S. v. Jean-Claude. So they're saying all the ones of which they were detained pre-trial. Even if detention is not mandatory here, which it is, the defendant cannot meet his burden to show by clear and convincing evidence that he is not likely to flee or pose a danger to any other person in the community. First, given the significant potential penalties, the defendant continues to be a flight risk. As described in Section 2 above, at minimum, the defendant faces a guideline range of 51 to 63 months imprisonment, and the guideline range found in sentencing may be higher. The possibility of substantial sentence such as this is a significant factor in assessing the risk of flight. Okay, that's pretty much the same stuff. Second, the defendant cannot meet his burden to demonstrate by clear and convincing evidence that he is not a danger to the community. The overwhelming evidence established at trial, which the defendant did not dispute, shows that the defendant has engaged in a years-long pattern of abuse and violence, including as recently as June 2024. That's if you believe Jane, though. Approximately 3 months before his arrest in this case. Despite the knowledge that he was under federal investigation, the defendant nevertheless brutally assaulted Jane, leaving injuries that were visible for days after the assault. Additionally, when the defendant traveled to New York City, where according to defense counsel, the defendant was waiting to be arrested in this case, he was in possession of drugs and the materials necessary for a freak-off. The defendant's conduct after he understood that he was under federal investigation underscores that he continues to be a danger to others and is either unable or unwilling to follow the law. For these reasons set forth above, the defendant's continued detention is required under the Bail Reform Act. Accordingly, the defendant's application for bail pending sentence should be denied. That is from the government. Okay, let's see. They said 4 years is substantial, and he already did one, so I don't know. So let's see if we got any play going on over here on X. Let's see. Okay. Programming note 502, new thread for bail proceedings started at okay, I think this is the thread. Let's see. All right, so while we're waiting on them to do what they do over there, we're going to pull up a letter from Dante Nash. He is actually helping the government trying to keep Diddy in jail. Dante did his e-signature, okay? He said, I'm a docu-sign this. Dear Judge Submarinian, I am writing to express my grave concern over the prospect of Sean Combs being released from custody. While I appreciate the fairness you have shown throughout this proceeding, I feel compelled to be unequivocal about the danger he poses to the public and to the individuals who have risked everything by coming forward. Mr. Combs has long, well-documented history of violence, coercive, and retaliatory behavior. Over the years, he has repeatedly escaped meaningful accountability, and each time this has only reinforced his sense of impunity. If he is released now, I have no doubt he will see it as yet another license to continue intimidating, threatening, and harming people who challenge or expose him. Many of us have firsthand knowledge of the fear he instills in those around him. I can say without hesitation that he is a serious and immediate threat to victims, witnesses, and the broader community. His pattern of violence, particularly while engaged in the trafficking of individuals for prostitution, combined with unchecked substance abuse, makes it clear that he is not ready to re-enter society safely or responsibly. To release Mr. Combs without substantial consequence would undermine the integrity of this process and send a dangerous message that wealth and influence can shield anyone indefinitely from accountability. It will also endanger those who cooperated with this investigation under subpoena, who are already living in fear of retaliation. I urge you in the strongest possible terms to prioritize the safety of victims and witnesses over any consideration of leniency. Mr. Combs has had countless opportunities to change, and he has chosen instead to escalate his harmful conduct. Allowing him back into the community now would be a profound mistake. Thank you for your time, for your commitment to protecting the public from those who repeatedly demonstrate they are unwilling to respect the law. That is from Dante. He wants Diddy to stay where Diddy is. Then you have Cassie. She also wrote a letter. Judge, this is from the lawyer. We write as counsel for Cassandra Ventura to respectfully request that the court deny Mr. Combs to be released pending his sentencing on his 2 convictions. Pursuant to the Bail Reform Act, detention is mandatory post-conviction on these charges, and Ms. Ventura believes that Mr. Combs is likely to pose a danger to the victims who testified in this case, including herself as well as the community. We thank the court for its time and attention to this matter. I don't know if Cassie really, had anything to do with this, but as I said before, I think it's interesting because she filed that lawsuit and he was walking around the streets when she did it. And he also talked to her before there was negotiations because this attorney, I guess, is the one that contacted his attorney and said, do you want to buy this book? And Diddy for $30 million and you can have exclusive rights. And Diddy said, no, I ain't buying nothing. You can kick rocks. And then Cassie said, oh, okay, you must think I'm a punk. Okay. And so she went and she filed this lawsuit, and he was still out on the street when all this stuff was happening. So, and she never went to the feds. Like, she never went to the feds at no time. When the police came, on different occasions when she was with them. She didn't even with the police. So I think it's a very interesting argument, unless they just think he's going to be retaliatory. If they're alleging perhaps he'll be retaliatory because they testified against him. But I think everybody said that they were subpoenaed and they had to. It wasn't too many people like, hey, choose me to go testify. Everybody was doing it under subpoena. So yeah. You said Jane Doe about to be homeless. She should have been homeless as soon as she got up off that stand. But I mean, that's just my opinion. Let's go pull up X again and see what's going on over there. Let's see. No, we don't see nothing happening yet. Nothing happening. We went through that quick. I was like, man, I'm going to have to read this quick. So they have Combs' lawyer Agnifilo, Alexandra Shapiro, and Tenny Geragos emerged from the holding cell, still waiting for Sean Combs to be brought into the courtroom by the U.S. Marshals. So that is that. So we're waiting to see what happens. What's going to be the fate? Will Sean Combs go home, or will he still cool his heels over there at that detention center eating bologna sandwiches and honey buns until further notice? We will see in a few minutes. In the interim, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to this here channel. Thank you so much. You Get Me said, I can't with Nancy Grace. She's so extra. She's saying she's shattered, devastated, feels like she's been kicked in the stomach. That is so Nancy Grace. Remember how she was with Talk Mom? Breaking news, Talk Mom. She could not stand Casey Anthony. I mean, for good reason, but she could not stand Casey Anthony. And when Nancy Grace doesn't like you, she'll say she wants defense attorneys on your platform, on her platform, but she just goes in on them and mad that, oh, I'm sure that's what you'll say because you represent all the scumbags. Like, dang. And she actually was a prosecutor out in, I think it was Fulton County in Georgia. When she did prosecute, and she has a whole story, I guess, of her fiance got unalived, which made her want to be the prosecutor and all of that type stuff. But yeah, thank you, You Get Me, for the super chat. Thank you, Peanut said it. Lunch on me. Job well done. Thank you. This is so kind of you. I appreciate it. Tiffany, thank you so much for gifting those 5 memberships and becoming a member. Diva58 said, hey to y'all. Make sure you guys speak. All right. So right now, what are we doing? We're waiting to see what's going on. I used to watch Nancy Grace, but I'm telling you, when she don't like people, thank you, Miss Buckeye. Crimson Tide, I don't know if you're here or not, but I missed your super chat on the last live. And I want to thank you for giving the super chat. I didn't mean to miss it. It was just going so fast, and I want to make sure that I personally thank you. And I think, Miss Buckeye, this is what it had. Diddy will likely appeal the conviction. No, probably yes. While the appeal goes forward, how likely will he remain out on bail? That's what we're talking about now. But I know that was the super chat from earlier this morning. But thank you again. I'm sorry I missed your super chat. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Miss Buckeye. I said, make sure you remind me. And I totally forgot, even though I just told you that probably 30 minutes ago. Dane said, what will you think will happen with the perjury between the fashion designer and Cassie? They both said Diddy tried to throw her over the balcony. Nothing. I don't think anything's going to happen personally. Thank you so much for the super chat. I don't think they're going to do anything to anybody that seemed perjured. Sean Combs has been brought in. He sits next to Tenny Geragos. He's reading. He better be reading the Bible, because that wasn't nothing but the Lord right there. This could have went either way. Thank you, Jacqueline, for the Cash App. Agnifilo walks over to the lectern, then back over to his seat. Prosecutors are in place at the front table, waiting on Judge Submaranian. So the anticipation deepens. We are waiting on the judge to come in. Cassie is more scared that she will likely lose her husband. She will be blackballed from the industry. Cassie violated street code when she threatened to write a book and demanded money. That's from Ty Smooth. I think that I don't think she's going to be blackballed from the industry, but I don't see too many people checking for her. But I never really saw too many people checking for her before. But apparently, she was trying to go back and do music and all of that, but she canceled her tour when she got that $20 million. But she said she just did it because all of this coming out was so mentally overwhelming and draining. But I mean, once you get 20 million, what you got to go out on tour for? Why you got to go dance to your only 3 songs? Like, she ain't need to. Thank you, Michelle, for the Cash App. I appreciate it. Man, they real tough, Miss Buckeye. You said nobody listening to Cash. Somebody is, I guess. That's what they say. The prosecutors got everything they asked for from the judge and still lost. They were winning those motions. Now that is true. They were winning those motions. They were winning their objections. They was adding things in that I thought was hearsay within hearsay. I'm like, how are they justifying this? But hey, it didn't work out for them. So yeah, we're gonna see. It's gonna be interesting. The bail reform. I went through that entire argument on Whitehead's case, and they remanded him, and it was like money. Was it extort? It had to. It did have to have something to do with threats and violence, because I think there was like extortion or something. It had to do with money. All of his was white collar crimes, but it did have something to do with threats or force or something. Thank you so much, Sandra Daluz. And this is for dinner. Much love from the Netherlands. That's what I'm talking about. We around the world. Thank you so much for supporting. And welcome to the chat, to the channel, and to the chat. That was very kind of you. Anthony said the government can't just take their L. No, they not. Didn't I tell you all? I said, somebody asked about him getting out. I said, yeah, he can request to get out, but the government about to fight that mug like hell. They're not just going to let him out. Either way you put it, this was a L for the government. Now they're trying to make it seem like, they're trying to, big up the Mann Act, but that was really a lesser offense out of all of them. That was the least offense that they had on there. So Kia Elder said it is very clear to see how social media influences the masses. Some titles say that Diddy is found guilty, facing 20 years. Others say not guilty. Yeah, I noticed that too. I think the ones that wanted him to go do some real time, a lot of them are saying faces up to 20 years. And that's why on the first video, I debunked all of that before I even showed you their letters that shows how the sentencing guideline works. And I think people just don't know that just because a statute says that doesn't mean you're going to get that time, or even you're even in that range, because it has a lot of factors, as you just saw in the letter. There are points to it and grouping and levels, and yeah, it's a whole training you have to do just to do the sentencing guidelines and do them properly. And as you see, the government has a whole different guideline in their calculation than what the defense is doing. The government is adding all the sex workers and Cassie and Jane. That's right, Sandra. You know what? PGM Williams said I would not have found him guilty. Even why? Even if you felt it, it's about the facts. Okay, so the judge said, I've read the party submissions and others. The jury convicted the defendant of counts 3 and 5 for the following reasons. Bail is denied. He swiftly denied that man's bail. Whoa! Judge Submaranian said, have a great day. When are you guys available? Pull out your calendars for the sentencing day because he going back to jail today. He's spending tonight at the detention center. Judge said no. Mm-mm. It may be because of the bail reform, and I don't see the defense. If the bail reform applied, then I don't think the defense even addressed that. So maybe that was the reasoning why. I kind of skimmed through it real fast because it just started getting real dry and bland. But maybe that was the reason why. I don't know, because it sounded like the judge just said, I read both submissions. No, you're not going home today. So when are you guys available for the sentencing? And they're going to try to do it as soon as possible. Looker T watching them. Nope, not today. The judge said not today. You said Patty. Hood Mayor said Judge tired. He got a place on Martha Vineyards he trying to get to this weekend. She said, shout out to the judge. I mean, Courtney said denied. Stormy said the defense letter was weak. I think the judge said, find me case law of people that were in this situation that got out on bail pending sentencing, and they came with their case law. The government went through all the guidelines. Then they went through the whole bail reform. That was a whole 2 pages, and that just wasn't addressed. I think the defense just addressed what they thought. They'll probably appeal this. I wonder if they're going to go ahead and they already got it ready to appeal. No, we don't got nothing else after that. So Gwen said exactly the judge will make his decision after the holiday. You said he busy right now. Means Diddy may get 10 years. No, he ain't getting 10 years. That's not even in the guide. The government knows that 10 years ain't in the guideline. They're saying between 4 years, 5 months. If the judge goes over and above like guidelines, then they have to have a reasoning to do so. All right, Lisa. Thank you so much. Thank you. You have a great night too. Will Trump pardon him? I think that's the next question. Now, what if before anything happens, Trump done already signed the letter and sent it over there to his Justice Department? If he does that, we coming back on. We coming back on. If he does that, the government is going to be real pissed. He said, Trump, come get him. Nature said, time served. Well, the judge said, listen. He said, you ain't going nowhere. You ain't going nowhere. Not right now. So the judge said, even if the defendant was solely required to show that he is not a danger to the community, he could not meet that burden. Prior to trial, the court denied bail and sees no reason to reverse that now. The defense conceded the defendant's violence. My. Judge is not a Diddy fan. Miss Bees, thank you so much for the super chat. Stormy says 60 months is appropriate. Okay, y'all. We still got some tweets. It looks like that's coming in. They haven't left. So we still got more on here. So hold on a little bit. It's almost 2,000 of y'all in here. Make sure that you hit that like button and subscribe before you leave up out of here. If you leave up out of here, however, we are not finished. I don't think they have adjourned it yet. So you said boo, free Diddy. Houston Foodie said amen. Hallelujah. Denied over there speaking in tongues. Diabolita Beauty said, people have lost their minds. I feel no ways for Diddy. There are people who deserve pardon. He's not one of them. Moses Tyson says she set Diddy up. Anthony said, Pam, give me lead attorney vibes. I like lead attorney. He all right. The judge trying to save face for the feds and a massive embarrassment they got dealt today. That's from Minx the Cutie. Y'all up here, come on, 47, free Diddy. You ain't going nowhere. You can be stopped. That's pretty much what the judge said. Of course, she did say bail never made sense, but his lawyer did their job and asked. You're supposed to ask, yeah. It was denied. It was denied. Alice Johnson, where you at? They said, where you at over here with this, since you the czar of the pardons right now. Mo Better said the judge mad at the verdict. Check. Did we ever hear about the motion for acquittal, the Rule 29? I think I missed that. The judge said his violence is depicted in the video of Cassie Ventura. So they keep holding on to the video. The defense admitted this is a terrible moment. Domestic violence is the issue, is what she said. It wasn't only that. There was the London hotel incident. Oh, the judge trying to give it to him. There was violence after the searches in this case. As to Jane, there was June 2024 after the searches of Combs' residence. This evidences a disregard for the law and a propensity for violence. The judge is in there going in right now. The judge is in there going in right now. So apparently the judges don't listen, whether the jury believed the incidents and how it happened with Jane or not. Apparently, it don't matter that Jane put his head into the table. It was how he was acting in response to it. So the judge basically said, you violent and you need to stay where you at. The video from 10 years ago, we know it was 10 years ago. And Jane said you wasn't beating her until that one incident. We think you're violent. So, yeah. No, apparently, Taddy, not at all. Yeah, he kind of he kind of showing a little something now. I'm gonna have to say that. So yeah. Jewel said Jane started a fight on purpose. Yes, the video. That's what kept him in before was the video. They kept playing the video and talking about the video, and the video was the reason why. So yeah. Shantae said he ruled in the state's favor on everything. Can't say I'm shocked. He's biased. Yeah, I hope he does go to rehab, and he hasn't had, I would assume he wasn't in there, doing any pink cocaine or mollies. But if that's the case, he's been clean for like 10 months. He would have to go through withdrawal while he was in jail. And Max said he just knew he was going to celebrate the 4th. I don't know. You said the judge of 50 Cent. Jackpot said the state coming for Diddy next if they don't have a statute of limitation issue. Ooh, sounds like an upward departure to me. That's what it sounds like he gonna fight for. They know they're gonna have to they're gonna appeal this, I think. I think they're going to appeal it. It was denied. Trying to see if I'm missing anything. Missing anybody's reporting. I thought the judge was just going to say, well, under the bail reform, we have to keep him in. But no, the judge is using this time to let him know how he really is feeling. You're violent. The judge said the court takes no position on what it will consider at sentencing, nor what sentence it will impose. But here, the burden is on him, and he cannot carry it. The defense argues the guideline started 21 months. The U.S. says 51 months. He's done 10 months. And man, you said good thing he has a jury. Whoa, Judge Submarinian. Wow. Thank you, Sharon, for the Cash App. I appreciate it. Wow, guys. The judge is like not happy. He convicted of buying. Yep, pretty much. That's what he's convicted of. Is there a let me look up this statute again. Hold on one second. Mm-mm. I'm trying to see. Transportation. Whoever knowingly transport any individual in interstate or foreign commerce or in any territory or possession of the U.S. with intent that such individual engage in prostitution or in any sexual activity for which any person can be charged with a criminal offense. So he's not being charged with anything violent. So the judge, that means the judge is basically taking, it sounds like, some of the testimony and just believing everything they say on top of the video to make this violent argument from 10 years ago. No. I don't know. Shanice said, will the jury or judge be in charge of sentencing? The jury went home. They out of it. They did their part. They said they out of it. Michelle said Diddy is evil and deserves 20 years for his crime. The video proves how evil and violent he really is, and fake apology meant nothing. He deserves no bail. I'm gonna let you pass because your emotions with all of these exclamation points. But a jury has already. It's not, honestly. He's not getting 20 years, and I've already said that. If the judge does any upward departures, he's going to have to justify that. If he's going to do anything high up, he's going to have to justify that. And it can't just be, I don't like him because some of the evidence that came out. They're almost, what they're doing now is they're using Diddy on Diddy. So when Diddy started out, he admits he's done things he wished he didn't do. He was violent. He was violent with her. I mean, you can't deny it. It's in the video. So the judge is pretty much saying you basically admitted that you were a violent person when you were saying that in your opening and your closing. Because this specific charge, this is interesting. He said, I said sentencing for Friday, October 3rd. Oh, so she keeping them in prison jail for a long time. This July, August, September. You got 90 days. October 3rd at 10 a.m. I am willing to expedite it. Agnifilo said, we would like it expedited, because that is like, the judge said we will need an expedited pre-sentencing report from probation. We talked about that on the last video. I told you about the pre-sentencing report, but I will be available anytime. And the judge said there is a great divide on the sentencing guidelines. I see that Ms. Comey has her statute book open. Ms. Comey said the rule required the preparation of a report absent a reason waiver. Probation may be able to expedite. The judge said, update me by July 8th at noon. So as of right now, it's October 3rd at 10 a.m. They're asking for it to be expedited, which I told you all earlier on my other video. Y'all got to check out my other video if you didn't, on the guilty and on the verdict that I did this morning. I told you that if he is denied bond, the judge is going to give him a date. They're going to try to want it sooner and expedite it because he's going, he's already in jail. If he's going to get time, we might as well start giving him his time. And if he's out, if he would have been out, he would have took that October date. So if he would have got bail, he wouldn't have cared. I told you it'll probably be 3 months from now. So the judge did it 3 months from now, but Get said, would you like to expedite it? And they said, yeah. So I think it's going to be interesting just to see if they appeal this. So, yeah, we talked about all this stuff that they're talking about in court right now. TJ said if he got out now, he would go directly to an FO, let him take these 90 days to calm down. You said he need to cool his heels, huh? Yeah. Trump said Diddy talked real bad about him, but he said that he still would be willing to help him if he felt like he was done unfairly. Because at one point they were really cool. So Trump did say that. So basically, he just got to say, man, I'm sorry. You right. This justice system is a mess. And I'm so glad you in office. You're doing such a great job. And then he'll be like, okay, just pardon my friend. Just go ahead and what do I need to sign, Alice? Shh. He does. No mention of Don Richard after her testimony. I haven't even seen Don Richard. I don't know where she is. The judge said, and we'll hold a hearing on the afternoon of July 8th. So they're going to have something. So Diddy's not over, y'all. We're going to have a whole nother hearing next week. Agnifilo said, Your Honor has a lot of information from presiding over the trial. We want the sentencing as soon as possible. Other Mann Act cases, they're nothing remotely similar to this. So he's still trying to argue. He can't believe his client ain't getting out to go home. October, right? Shanice said, I think Trump will pardon him just to get back at Comey because he hates her dad. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's the Comey is the lead counsel over there on this case. You said Trump wants money. Apparently, they want people to get 20. That's why I said about this case, what I noticed. And like I said, I'll just say be respectful. And of course, you can give your opinion either way. But people, to me, I've seen a lot of transferring of energy and transferring of trauma onto this case. To say somebody for domestic violence should get 20 years is crazy to me. Why? Because I've seen people who get DVs and they have statutes to send you to anger management and you can get a dismissal. Then on your second time, you might get 30 days if you don't have a good enough attorney. But it takes a little minute. Now, what they will do is they will stop you from carrying weapons. I think that should be the case. You shouldn't be able to carry no weapons or anything. But the way DV is handled is not 20 years. Like you have to almost have like an attempt shoot. You can get 20 years and have second degree murder. So the things that people are saying, and I get it, there's a lot of people that have that are alleging. I don't know how true it is because I wasn't there, and I don't know Diddy from a can of paint. But I do know how he was acting on those reality shows and how his personality was. Some of it, he said he was bigging up for the cameras, but people are saying they were mistreated as far as being artists or how he talked to them and all of that. So a lot of them are still having that same reaction where they want him punished. They want him punished as much as possible for how they feel like they were damaged. And I think he does owe a lot of people apologies. You got the big head, you had the power, you had the money, and you did some things you probably should not have done. And I think we've all agreed to that. I don't think everyone is lying on him about their experiences. I think about 50% of them lawsuits ain't the truth. But this is what's happening when people say things like he should do 110 years. No, he should do what he was convicted of. That's our system. It's like, oh, well, I'm going to convict you of this, even though that ain't even what you on trial for. That doesn't even make any sense. What if somebody finds an old video of you shoplifting back 10 years ago, but you go in and they're like, they have you coming in on something totally different, but then they showing the picture over and over again of you being a thief. And then if you found not guilty, they're like, but no, Your Honor, give her time because she stole something 10 years ago. Like, that's not nothing you would want for yourself. You go to prison and you have consequences for what a jury of your peers says when you're guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. That is our system, and we are considered the best system in the world. Do they always get it right? No, they don't always get it right. The RICO was very shaky. Why the RICO is as hard as the RICO is because the RICO, I told you all, I think yesterday, this was not RICO's intent. So when you start trying to put all type of stuff and fit it in, it gets complicated. When I was actually reading the jury instructions, I was like, they're probably even more confused than when they started. Why? Because you're trying to fit circles in the square pegs, because you're trying to expand it in order to fit what somebody's behavior is that may not specifically have a violation or a crime to it, and just fit them in RICO. Like RICO has become the catch-all now. We saw it over in Georgia. Like people, like they're just using RICO. Donald Trump had a RICO. Fonnie Willis charged him with a RICO over trying to overturn the election. So yeah. Agnifilo said the cases where we reviewed involving defendants making money, millions, or involve minors. That's different here. That's different here are the facts. From our letter, see US v. Dillon. Actually, it's US v. Delon Jordan. She said I covered it. Inner City cover everything, okay? So Inner City corrected her on the case. Yeah, they like, you get a RICO. Yeah, Nesto got a RICO for his case too. And it was a bunch of financial crimes. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to stay till they adjourn. If you guys bear with me, we're just trying to see until they adjourn. See if anybody is outside so we can catch some things. Let me see. I'm trying to see who. I'm trying to see. I don't see anybody outside right now. Nobody outside. Now, somebody sent me a video of like them throwing baby oil on each other and stuff like that, and people was pissed about that. Y'all go follow me on Instagram if you don't follow me, please. It's Pam ESQ. Go follow your girl. Celebrities continue with responses following the verdict of Diddy's trial. Let's see what Ray J got to say. Oh no, this is.
So everybody that had the baby oil, you guys can go take a shower. Diddy ain't coming home today. Those were rumors. The judge has denied Diddy bail. They said that he does pose a danger to society because he still had domestic violence when the feds were investigating him all the way up until June 2024. So that Diddy has not proven that he is not a danger to society. So, like I said, bail denied. Are you surprised? I'm not. If he walked, people were gonna go wild.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit surprised, yo.
You are? You know who else is surprised? The marshal. He goes, really? After all that?
He's Albanian. That's what I'm saying. Yo, him and I are Albanian. Yo, our people.
Not the marshal. Like, huh?
But like, listen, yo, he was denied bail, so I don't know.
All right, bail denied. Denied, bottle. Denied. Sorry.
Call Me Darling said, my opinion on that is those content creators worked their tail off for the past 7 weeks. They are entitled to have a little fun. That's from Call Me Darling. But they was going in on them in the chat like, this is very serious. You guys don't take anything serious. There are real victims. And so, but I mean, the government placed so much emphasis on the baby oil. So it's kind of why people started talking about it. Agnifilo said, then there was the Emperor's Club case of the former governor of New York. We understand this is moving quickly. The issue for us is we've had more time. We would have shown extraordinary circumstances. So now they're acknowledging, since they only had 2 hours to really argue this thing, they were like, if we had more time, we could do more. The judge said, you concede violence in your closing. Whether that's relevant to sentencing is not for today, but it can be considered on a bail application. So basically him conceding that he was violent, the judge is using it against him. I would respond, but judge, didn't you say that what we say is not evidence? What we say as attorneys in our arguments is not evidence. But it can be considered on a bail application. And then Agnifilo said in June 2024, there's an argument that Mr. Combs was defending himself. So that's the James situation, which is true. She did kind of start it, but I guess the judge ain't trying to hear it. So they're still arguing to try to see if the judge will perhaps give them another day so that, or a couple of days or a new date so they can actually hash this and argue this out. Terryville said there was a lot of drama with Tisa. What happened? She had content creators calling her a liar, and she had the same wig on for 8. Terry, what are you talking about? I'm going to put the link down in here. If anybody wants to come up and tell me what I'm missing, because I didn't hear anything about no Tisa and her wigs and people talking about her, except for people saying that she was going to be really pissed because, you know, she's been really swinging for the government for the last 8 weeks. Armand got it on a video. So it's on his Instagram. Where is it at? I can't do it if it's on YouTube. Let me see. Armand. See it. Oh, he got his videos on it. He got him doing the whole oil thing. Let me see. Oh, this the oil that made everybody mad. Oh yeah, that's the oil that made everybody pissed off. You said it's on YouTube? He said, what? Tisa. Elisa said Tisa Torre and Nancy Grace were terrible. They act like somebody laced their baby oil. Listen, they wanted Diddy to go down. They wanted him to go like super down. Crazy. Man, October. I don't think they're going to wait till October. The judge is going to push it up. They're going to have a pre-sentencing report. That area, the pretrial services is going to start putting their stuff together. I don't see anybody on here. Let me see. All right, let me see if we got anything else from the judge because they still arguing, y'all. In the courtroom. Oh, no, I read that. Hold on. Let's see. Okay, so then they said, judge said Mr. Combs tried to get into a batterers program in New York. The jury never heard that. Then he got arrested. All these months later, here we are. The same drive to meet the head on, like the self-respecting businessman he is. Agnifilo said he's been a model prisoner. There have been no issues. He's going to have next chapters of his life. When you're charged with racketeering, you have dark talks. When I was reading the Mia messages for his birthday, I had a hard time doing it. I don't know. I think they're going to appeal this. They might already done written it up, and I think the Second Circuit, they have it in the same building. They might go on to the other side of the building and go ahead and file that appeal. Oh, the guy from Ratchet TV went off on Tisa because she was too biased. People taking it so personal. You know, everybody has their right to their opinion. The thing that cringes me is like, if this were you talking about Real Housewives of Atlanta or something, it doesn't bother me like that. But when you misinterpret and twist up the law, that does bother me because that's what I do every day. So that's why I was so passionate on, you guys, this is the facts. This is the law. Let's pull up the statute. We pull up cases. We pull up statutes. We'll pull up jury instructions. We pulled up jury instructions before we knew their jury instructions were, just to get a gist of what it is, because I think it's important to know how the system really works, because you or your loved ones may need to know the ins and out of the system so they don't get caught up in it. Some of these, it's really for entertainment, and I think they're forgetting this is really someone's life. This is really someone's father. This is really someone's son. This is really, someone who may not have made the best decisions, but he has cooled his heels for the last year. That is one thing that has not happened to him, regardless of what people are saying. I don't think he's going to get out and just really give a damn about half these people, honestly. I think he's going to focus on his family and his businesses and try to recoup all these millions of dollars he had to lose while he was in jail fighting for his life. That's what I want to believe. I get it. When people do things, it's hard to believe that they can change. So he's never done anything to me. So I'm not going to tell anybody how to process their trauma and their issues. But we all want grace and mercy until, like I said, you have to extend it to someone else and extend it to them. You want them consistently punished for the rest of their life, but for you want your forgiveness immediately. You want people to look at you in a way, and the measure that you give to other people is the measure that comes back to you. Now that's Bible. You want to judge people like that and feel like they should get 20 years for smacking somebody one time? Then somebody may think you should get 20 years for taking a piece of bubble gum when you was 15. So we have to be careful about these type of things. The law is what it is. When you apply the law to the facts, I think the jury got it right. When it comes to this bond, they about to be fighting this. They're going to be fighting this for a little bit of a minute. So and I do agree people have the right to their opinions, but I don't agree that people have the right to mislead or to lie. So I'm not condoning any of that I saw all over YouTube, no particular person. I don't condone that when they embellish for no reason for clicks and views, because at the end of the day, this is a family. This is a person. This is a real human being. Now, again, people feel like he's done horrible things and they feel like everything bad happening to him is karma. That's what they believe. And they believe he should be, to the highest extent of the law, he should be punished. That's what they feel. But just know, as zealous as you are about him, that may happen to you or yours. Somebody may be just as zealous about you and yours, because the measure you give is the measure you get. So anyway, Agnifilo said his children are here. His 2 daughters, they're in the middle of the second row. They no longer have a living mother. Here, the user of prostitution services has been convicted under the Mann Act. He was acquitted of violence for sex trafficking. So they still arguing, because the judge was just like, it's a no. It's no. He's violent and he shouldn't be out in the street. So maybe it was the letter that Cassie don't want him out there. Or maybe it was the letter from Dante, like, y'all don't really know this guy. Y'all don't really know he's retaliatory. Everybody's scared. And I've seen people repost the letter and say people don't understand how fearful we are of Diddy. So Cousin E says she was in the life of misleading the people, which isn't fair. This is a real person life that has children. So Anita, T said Nancy Grace was spitting her own version of the law. I said it again. I agree that people can have their own opinions, but I don't agree with people that make things up to get clicks and views. I don't care who you are. You can interpret facts the way you want to. Like, for instance, her running when she left and she was going, when Cassie was leaving and going to the elevator, nothing in my mind said she trying to get away from a freak off. Nothing in my mind said that. But the government used those facts to say she was getting away from a freak off. And the jury ultimately determined that no, she wasn't being forced to do a freak off. So yes, there are facts that have multiple interpretations. But when you make things up or certain things the way that they did not happen and you have no facts to back it up, then you are basically subjecting yourself to being sued. That's all I'm saying. I see a lot of content creators that teeter that line with some of the things that they say. I've seen lawsuits of people that have contacted me as content creators for things that they said just being flipped at the mouth to be funny or to make sure people come in and watch them. So my concern, and this is just me as being in the profession that I'm in, is that just be careful. Because a lot of people that get sued on YouTube, they can't afford lawyers. How do I know? Because they've contacted me. And they either want to try to figure out how they can respond. Do I know anybody or whatever? It's only been a couple of content creators I think that I've actually done work for that, that I was paid for. But other than that, the majority of them, because there's a lot of content creators watch me in the bushes. And so that's all I'm saying. It's cool to have your opinion. You could have think Diddy is guilty of everything. You feel like he should have went down and you thought he was going to go down. I don't got a problem with that. Because to me, that's just your opinion, but it's not based in law. You just have a personal opinion about him. But say that's your personal opinion when it comes to that. But when you make things up, then that's a problem. That's all I'm saying. But I don't know. I don't watch any of these people. Again, I have not watched Tisa since the Shanquella Robinson. And after that interview, I didn't watch her anymore. So I don't know like what her commentary was. I knew she was not pro Diddy. Like I knew that, but I didn't watch like how passionate she was or things she was saying or if she was telling the truth about stuff or embellishing. I don't know that. That I don't know because I didn't watch her enough. So yeah. Some people be acting like they know Diddy in real life. Do some of y'all know him? I'm just saying with these comments. Agnifilo said he wants to talk to you. Let me check. Just said, okay, check, Miss Comey. The government said his brazenness is almost unmatched. To suggest it was self-defense is insulting. He slapped her in the shoulder. He had drugs in his NYC hotel room. He invited Jane. Agnifilo said we could craft conditions. Will the court be open to us putting together a bail package? I am happy to do so. The judge said the bail application is denied. We'll receive hopefully a joint proposal on expedited sentencing on Tuesday and a hearing at 2 p.m. The judge ain't trying to hear nothing he's talking about. Judge is like, I don't care what you talking about. I ain't interested. Elite Leo said, Tisa blocked me for calling her out some time ago. She's similar to Jaguar, in my opinion. She finds a target and then becomes obsessed with reporting on the person and making it about them. Queen B said, we talking about something 10 years ago. That's what he's saying. Soup Bone said, the judge is acting like it's a DV. The judge has made up his mind, okay? All you can do is make a record. And I think they need to make a record so they can appeal. Because this is like insanity at this point. Tisa does try to lead folks, but that's her style. You either like it or don't. I tune in some, tune out for others. Shantae 101 said, I know a lot of people that know him. I never wanted to meet him. You said keep fighting. They can keep fighting. They just making a record at this point. The judge already made his decision. He already made it. The fact that Money and the judge are speaking on Cassie as the victim of this case is wild. Listen, Michelle said she did a great job. Haters will be haters until it happens to them or their family members. Oh, okay, Michelle. See, this is the second time you didn't. So now you get to go because you doing too much. Oh, Lord have mercy. I'm so tired of blocking people. Mods, I need y'all to get your block game on. Because I'm a lot of things, but that's the second time she called me a hater. The second time because I apply facts to law and I say, be truthful. I don't know Tisa. I don't watch Tisa. I said, I know she ain't pro Diddy, but I didn't watch her commentary. And you still want to call somebody a hater? Relax, sis. Relax. Okay. So I'm going to give you some time to go relax. Yes, I did. Because this was the third comment and I don't like it. I did, AK. I had to. Okay. Kiana said, I believe Cassie's letter was already drafted just in case. It could be. SH Play says some content creators painting themselves in a corner by assuring Rico was far gone. Conclusion. Yeah, I think they did. Oh, Rico's been proven. You know how many videos I've seen? Rico's been proven. Oh, he's going to jail on Rico. Oh, that's guaranteed. He definitely, first of all, you never know what a jury is going to think. And the fact that everybody was divided in this chat, and even I've explained why the RICO didn't apply here and how I never saw the RICO. I don't care how many witnesses they put on. I just never saw the RICO. I couldn't get past the first prong. What I think the problem was is people were looking at the crimes he was accused of, like arson, bribery, kidnapping, and they were like, oh, they done already proved 2 of them. The RICO is there, but no. And the fact that people in this profession were saying things like that was tripping me out. Because I'm like, you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt each element. So even if I conceded distribution, I was like, oh, yeah, the definition, he fits it. They can get him on 2 incidents on that. But I told you all, I was like, but if you, because people was like, the distribution, oh, he's done because that's the RICO. And what did I have to do? I had to bring you guys back down to tell you that if you have 4 elements in a statute or in a crime, you have to prove guilty beyond a reasonable doubt for each element. So even assuming they were able to find the 2 predicate acts and they didn't have a problem with it, they still were going to have to prove the other 3. And people were going off RICO based on predicate acts, which is only 1 element that they have to prove in the RICO. That's all I'm saying. There are a few attorneys I will never use if I catch a case. It was the civil attorneys being strong and wrong. Well, I do civil too now, but I've done criminal. So, but there's a difference between, of course, there's crossovers, but there's definitely a difference between doing criminal and civil, and you have to learn it. And yeah, I think every attorney just feels like, well, I'm not going to say every, that's too broad, but there are a lot of attorneys that just feel like if you know one area, you know all of them. I don't feel that way. I tell you, like, child, I don't know nothing about bankruptcy. I don't know nothing about this. So it was adjourned. So they did adjourn it. They're going to do a proposal to do an expedited sentencing. But for now, he is still cooling his heels over there in the county. Thank you, Terry, for the Cash App and fabulously dressed. I appreciate the support. Y'all got any questions? We've been on here all day. Any questions? I'm a novice to the law and I'm a probation officer. You see a whole lot. So it would be, how does the appeal process work? It would be the same as, it would be similar as how it was when he was trying to get it before. Remember, they went to the Court of Appeals. Then I guess after a while, Diddy was like, forget it. Don't even ask him no more. I'll just wait till after the trial and I'll stay here. And then they withdrew it. So I think Spiro, it wouldn't shock me if she didn't file an appeal today. So yeah. I'm more irritated at the security guard who did 1,000 interviews but didn't get on the stand. Thank y'all. No worries. Thank y'all so much for supporting over here. This conversation has been stellar. I think I got the best chat all over YouTube. You guys are very, very smart. You think logically. My actual subscribers. Some people come over here and you like side-eyeing them a little bit, but that's it, y'all. That's it. Yeah, he keeps his wealth with a Rico. That's why I said, when I kept telling you all, I said the Rico will take all his stuff away. So yeah, I do. Thank you so much. See, I agree. Got the best chat. All right, y'all. You guys have a wonderful day. If something else happens, we'll be back. But honestly, I'm tired. I've been up since like 7 and I have been nonstop. So I'm gonna hope nothing exciting happens because I need to take this little jacket and stuff off so that I can go relax for a couple of minutes. Thank you guys again for all of the super chats, the cash outs, all the love, all the comments. Thank you for the like. Thank you for the subscribe. And I'm gonna holler at y'all later. You guys have a great rest of your evening.